Hello, I have now been using prescription tretinoin for over a year, actually technically about 14 months now. And I want to tell you guys all about my journey. I made a ton of notes. I want to update you on my experience. I want to tell you about how my acne actually came back. But I feel like now I'm finally getting it back under control. I'm going to tell you the change I've seen in my skin, both in the texture and the appearance. I'll also tell you a bit about my experience moving up in strength to a higher percentage. And this video, to be as helpful as possible, I'm gonna have timestamps all along. You'll find little chapters at the bottom of the screen, and the timestamps will be in the description box if there's a particular section you wanna skip to, because we have a ton to cover today. I do also have a 6-month update video that I'm gonna leave linked down below. In that video, I shared progress photos a lot more frequently, around like every single week, like the difference I was seeing in my skin. And in today's video, I will share more like overall results after using this for a year. But if you want to see the like step-by-step of every single week, check out the 6-month update that I will link. But let's just jump straight into it. I feel like I want to start off telling you guys a little bit about my journey with acne, because I think that's really relevant to this video. Now, I didn't specifically say in the beginning, but if it's not clear, I am not wearing any makeup today, aside from a lip gloss that I had next to me, I've now lost, and then my eyebrows. I didn't want to wear a foundation or concealer or anything, blush, bronzer, none of that, because I wanted you to see my actual skin. Also, I do film with natural light. I don't have any studio lighting happening. I'm just sitting in front of my window right now. So, my acne story. I started getting acne in high school, as many of us do, and at the time, I thought my acne story would start and end in my teenage years, but that was not the case for me. I feel like it was so persistent in high school and I had tried everything. And my acne at the time was very heavily focused like right here. Not as much on the other regions of my face, but mostly on my forehead. And I will say, I feel like from my late teens to early to mid 20s, I really wasn't struggling with acne that much. The occasional breakout here and there, maybe, but not so much. I'm now 29. But looking back now that I've kind of gone through this journey, I can most likely attribute that to the fact that those were the years I was taking hormonal birth control. And hormonal birth control tends to be really effective at helping your acne. So I can assume that the big part of the reason I didn't struggle with acne as much throughout those years was because I was on birth control. But flash forward to the very beginning of 2021, that was when I went off of the pill and stopped taking hormonal birth control. And I knew going off of the pill that I would probably notice some side effects. And I definitely did. Initially, my skin everywhere was very, very oily. Not only my face, but also my scalp. I felt like I could wash my hair in the morning and by nighttime, my scalp would look so greasy. But at the time, I wasn't that panicked, just because I had a feeling it would kind of just regulate back to normal after a little bit of time. And my face was especially oily at that time also, and I was noticing a lot of breakouts, but they were mostly in this region, a lot on like my chin around the jawline, which is typically associated with hormonal acne. So I assumed it was probably just from coming off of birth control and that it would get better eventually. And I did feel like it did start to get better within a month or two. It wasn't too long of noticing side effects from that. And my skin seemed to be clearing up until summer of 2021. July 1st, I moved to New York City, and leading up to that move and right after that move, my forehead started breaking out really bad, ton of tiny little bumps. And at this time, I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is probably just stress. You know, I'm moving across the country, I'm overwhelmed. These breakouts will go away. Well, they didn't. They persisted to get worse for months and months and months. And I would say the point where it was the absolute peak was right around September/October of 2021. And at that point, I was desperate. I was like, it was affecting my confidence, my mental health, just because I felt so consumed by my acne at that point. I was like obsessing over it. And that's when I talked to my doctor about starting Tretinoin. Now, I do want to note, I got my prescription not from a dermatologist. I got it from my PCP. And when I was telling her about my acne and she's looking at it, she's like, I actually don't think the Tretinoin is going to help your acne. And that was like a dagger to my heart because I had done all the research on Tret beforehand. I've seen so many people with great experiences on Tret. I was like, what do you mean? This is supposed to be like my answer. And she was like, no, I think it's more like a bacterial problem. So I'd actually like to prescribe you topical clindamycin, which is an antibiotic, like a topical antibiotic. So she prescribed me that. She was like, that's probably what's going to help your acne. But I was like, can I also try the Tret? Like I was like, this is going to do it for me. I was convinced this was going to be my saving grace. So she did prescribe me both after we talked about it a little bit more. And right after that is when I started using both of them. Now, the thing with clindamycin, because it is an antibiotic, it's not necessarily recommended for long-term usage because there is the potential for antibiotic resistance. Now, it can be used long-term if it's used in conjunction with benzoyl peroxide. So that is the difference there. But for me, I feel like I noticed a difference right away. And at the time, I thought I was really seeing the difference from Tretinoin. But now that I've gone through this journey, again, which we'll get into shortly, I actually feel like what really cleared up my skin was the clindamycin. And I specifically wanted to note that in today's video because my acne came back bad this summer. Well, like late summer, early fall. And at that time, the Tret just was not helping. But I want to save that for a little bit farther into the video. But before that point, I would say my acne significantly cleared up within 1 month of the combination of clindamycin and Tretinoin. I was feeling amazing. My skin was looking great. Like 1 month, I saw a big difference. Like probably by 2 months, I feel like my acne was pretty much fully gone. I wasn't really experiencing any new breakouts. Now, I also want to note, at that time in 2021, my acne was mostly on my forehead, but I was still getting some breakouts on this region of my face. And what I've noticed is since using Tretinoin, I really don't get very many, if any, breakouts from here down. My breakouts that I still am struggling with are on my forehead only. And I thought that was interesting to note. And it's similar to what my doctor said. But I went the rest of 2021 through most of 2022 with very few breakouts, feeling so confident about my skin. The occasional pimple here or there or a little bump on my forehead, but like it wasn't bad until this summer. So the start date for this happening was when I went to Michigan in September. That's where I'm originally from. I went home and I remember leaving New York, no problems with my skin. And I remember landing and looking at my skin in the mirror in the bathroom when I got to Michigan. And I was like, where did these bumps come from? I remember immediately having bumps. And then it just got progressively worse from there. And I felt like I was so confused, let me tell you, because I thought Tretinoin was just going to be like this was the fix. I was never going to deal with acne again. So the fact that it came back and came back worse than when I started Tretinoin, I felt like I was losing a lot of faith in this product and this ingredient. And I went through such a, honestly, like I was losing it, you guys. I was having a meltdown. I was so upset because if you've ever had acne before, which I'm sure if you're watching this video, you probably have, but you know that even when it goes away, when you start to see any signs of it coming back, there's just that fear of like, oh my gosh, I have to do this again. Like I cannot keep doing this. It is just mentally draining to deal with acne. And I got to the point around September to October and even early into November that I was obsessing over my skin to the point that it was completely affecting my mental health, to like consistently crying over my skin, you guys. And I don't know that it was super noticeable to you guys on camera just because I do wear makeup and I think it does a decent job covering it. but I was like finding new bumps on my forehead almost daily. Anytime I thought I would see some progress, it was like 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Like one breakout would be starting to go away, I would get 2 new ones. And I was truly becoming obsessed with it to like such an unhealthy point that I was taking photos of my skin twice a day, which I don't recommend doing. I would take a picture when I woke up and I would take a picture before bed. And then like in the morning, I would compare this morning's photo to yesterday morning's photo. And then at night, I would compare tonight's photo to last night's photo. And I would be like counting the bumps on my face just to see, are there more, are there less? This one was big yesterday, is it bigger or smaller today? Like, it was bad. The amount of collages that I was making on my phone of like days of skin, to the point that I was like making myself cry over how upset I was about my skin. And I'm sure some of you guys will see the photos and you're gonna be like, girl, you are so dramatic, it's not even that bad. But it's one of those things that maybe if someone else isn't noticing it or someone else doesn't view it as severe as you, we notice things more on ourselves, we're harder on ourselves, and it was taking such a toll on me to deal with this the last few months. And I started just doing so much digging into what it could be because it didn't seem to be reacting to my normal acne treatments. And then I had convinced myself that I had fungal acne, which isn't technically acne. It actually has a different name, but it's more of like a fungal infection on your face, to the point that I was rubbing antifungal creams on my face. I had like a prescription antifungal shampoo, like for your hair, for like dandruff and stuff. I was putting that on my face because I was like, this is going to help. Spoiler alert, it didn't help. And I want to leave a video linked down below from my friend Rudy Berry, because I found this video at the perfect time when I noticed I was going through basically a parallel experience to hers. And so I'm going to link it because I found it both kind of like reaffirming and helpful. But she mentioned that she basically had the same experience on tretinoin where her acne cleared up and then it came back on the forehead. She thought it was fungal, tried all these things. And she mentioned what actually finally got her skin back was going back to the prescription clindamycin and benzoyl peroxide. So I was like, okay, that was what my doctor even recommended in the beginning a year ago when I was struggling with this problem. So I was like, let's revert back. So I went back to that, stopped putting shampoo and antifungal creams on my face, and I actually started to see some progress. And today, I mean, you can see my skin. I'm going to do the close-up photos and everything. Don't you worry. But my skin is so much better. I am frustrated that I do have this new little guy coming up on my forehead that I was like, man, of course, when I'm going to film the video about this, I have this pimple forming. But that's the only like actually really active breakout on my face right now. I have some red bumps and whatnot that you can see, but those are scars. But they'll go away. Don't worry, they'll go away and it'll get back to normal. But I feel like I know I spent a long time explaining that, but I wanted to share that experience because I know that I'm not alone. And especially watching Rudy share her experience in her video, I remember I was like bawling, crying, because I was like, this is what's happening to me. And I'm like, why am I crying right now? It's just acne, but it can feel so isolating. Especially being 29 and having acne, I'm like, why am I still breaking out? Like, this is something I thought would end as a teenager. If you have acne or if you're going through it right now, I hope that this story can just remind you that like it's not permanent. It will get better and nobody notices it as much as you do. I'm telling you though, like when I would go in public, that's all I could see in other people. When I would look, like I would just be like, their forehead has no bumps, her forehead has no bumps, his forehead has no bumps. Like that was all I would look at when I saw people because I was so preoccupied with my own acne. Like it was all I could see on others. And I remember mentioning it to a friend and I was like, that's all I look at. Like when I look at you, all I see is that you don't have bumps on your forehead. And she was like, it's so funny you say that because I don't notice the bumps on your forehead until you mention them to me. I'm not looking for them. And then I remember her telling me, she's like, but that's how I feel when I look at you and I don't see the under eye bags that I see in myself. And then I remember saying to her, well, I don't know what you're talking about because I don't see your under eye bags either. And I feel like that's such a good reminder that people are not noticing your acne or your perceived imperfections the way that you are. And I feel like I really needed to hear that when she told me that. It really clicked when she was like, I didn't even see your bumps. Like, this is so much more in your head than it is something other people are noticing. And the tough part with acne is that there's almost this assumption and this stigma and misconception that if you have acne, it's something you're doing wrong. Or there's the idea that like you're dirty, you're not properly cleansing. And that's almost never the case. Like acne is very much genetic. My mother is in her mid-60s, still deals with acne, so it makes sense that I also do. And the funny part is too that the stigma associated with people having acne, maybe not properly taking care of themselves, is usually like not farther from the truth. Like the people that I know that struggle with acne are the people that have like the tip-top skincare routines. Like if you struggle with acne, you probably have done all the research. You know so much about your skin, how acne works. You probably have like a top-notch skincare routine. So that's what pains me, that I would get responses from people like, well, maybe your pillowcases are dirty, or like, have you tried drinking more water? And I know people mean well, but it would be just so invalidating to hear when I'm like, no, I'm really doing everything right. Like I've seen a doctor for this. I'm on prescription medication. This is just genetic. This is just my life. And I know I'm talking a lot about this acne journey before we even really get into the Tret stuff, but I just feel like maybe there's someone out there that needs to hear that this is not your fault. Like you are doing everything right and it will get better. So around the time, it was actually around the beginning of November when I went back to my doctor and I said, my acne is kind of coming back. I had just finished up my tube of 0.025 and I asked her about moving up in strength and we decided to go up to 0.05. So around beginning to middle of October was when I went up in strength. I kind of thought this in itself was going to save my skin. I'm like, well, maybe I've just plateaued because my skin is used to the 0.025. Once I move up, it's going to immediately go away. That wasn't really the case. Like I said, I really feel like returning to clindamycin for a bit was what took care of it. However, I still have had very good results being on this new higher dosage, which I want to dive into now. So the first thing that concerned me when I went up in strength was the fear of a purge, because I hear people talk about that so much. There is the purge that a lot of people experience when they start tretinoin, and then there is potential for a second purge when you move up in strength. Not everyone experiences that, but I have heard stories of people dealing with a second purge. So I was pretty terrified. I was like, am I going to start this to try to fix my acne again and it's going to get worse? I don't necessarily feel that I experienced a second purge, but it's hard to say because my skin was already going through it. Though if you watch my 6-month update, I didn't experience a purge to begin with. At least not in terms of additional acne, which again, it's hard to say because I was struggling with my skin at that point. But what I did notice going up in strength was the dryness, you guys. Oh my gosh, the peeling was very bad for the first month moving up in strength. And I thought my skin would adjust to this quickly because I was at the point where I could be using the 0.025 nightly if I wanted to with no irritation. So I was like, I should be able to add this in every few days, no problems. No, my skin was, I'll try to insert some photos. I have a specific picture where I was wearing makeup and then the makeup, like everything was cracking underneath. It looked like the surface of the earth cracking. Like it looked horrible. It was to the point where my skin was looking better without makeup on because if I tried to put anything on top of it, it was just completely cracking apart. And most of the dryness for me really has been in this region, especially on my chin, around my nose, around here. Not as much in other areas, except my eyelids. Tret can migrate. I've heard specific distance being around an inch, which would make sense because I was doing it on my forehead and then it was coming down to my eyelids. My eyelids were peeling when I went up into the new strength. I've now been using 0.05 for about 2 months, and I'm still not at a rate of being able to use this nightly. The most I can do is about every third night. If I'm doing much more than that, I'm noticing dryness. So I will do like one night and then rest, one night, rest. And then on those rest nights, I am just focusing on hydration, whether that's with hyaluronic acid, with different oils, on top of my moisturizer, doing like a moisturizing mask. Like I am just focused on hydrating during those rest nights. And I, especially in the beginning, phased all of my other actives out of my routine, which was the same thing I did when I started Tretinoin, because this on its own is doing a lot. So if you're trying to do this and then the next night do like an AHA serum and then the next night do another exfoliating product and like trying to layer a lot of active treatments in addition to Tretinoin, in the beginning, that is going to be trouble. So I stopped using all of my other actives for the most part when I started this new strength. Now I feel like I am adjusting to this. I feel like I've gotten my skin to a better place that I'm a lot more comfortable with. Let's talk about the changes I've seen in a year. Now keep in mind, I'm actually past 1 year on using Tretinoin. I'm at around 14 months. I didn't want to do the update right at the year because I was still struggling with my forehead and I wanted to kind of get that under control so I would have a better understanding of Tretinoin, because I know had I made that video 2 months ago, I was just so salty. I was mad at Tretinoin. It wasn't working. So I feel like I needed the time to try to get that under control to then come on camera. So first thing that I've learned is that Tret is not the end all be all. And I am devastated to say that, because when I saw such incredible results from this in the beginning, I thought, okay, that's it. I'm never going to deal with acne again. I'm going to have perfect skin forever. And that has not been my experience. Like I said, my acne came back. It's now back under control, but it's a good reminder that Tret is very, very helpful, but you are still possibly going to experience some breakouts here and there. It might come back. It's not permanent, but it might come back. But let's talk about my skin in terms of the appearance and the anti-aging effects of Tretinoin, because I have some pictures that I am so excited to share with you guys. So these photos were taken in 2018. I even left the timestamps on when I took these screenshots on my phone so you would know, like, I'm telling the truth here. These were taken 4 years ago, actually more than 4 years ago. And I want you to look at how deep the lines in my forehead were at the time. These are just regular photos taken on an iPhone. This one from 2019, I think if you saw this photo of me and then you saw a photo of me today, just based on the skin, you would think I was much older in the 2019 photo, because my skin texture just is not as nice. The lines in my forehead are so much deeper. And then I want to pop up a photo from this summer. So this was actually before I had been using Tret for a year, but I guess, that's even more exciting. Those were not even year-long results. And you can see the side-by-side. The bottom photo was just a picture I happened to have from a day when I was in the park, and I wanted to use that specifically because it's also in natural light. Both photos are taken in natural light where I have foundation on, and that is the difference in my forehead 4 years apart. I also don't really have freckles anymore since using Tretinoin and consistent sunscreen usage. Maybe still a little bit, but they are significantly more faded than they used to be, which does bum me out a little bit because I love my freckles. But I used to have rather prominent freckles along my nose and under my eyes. I really don't have any anymore. Also, I feel like the texture of my skin is better than it ever has been. Like, even before I was struggling with acne, even like 5 years ago before I started getting acne again, like, my skin texture today is so much better than then. It is so much glowier. I feel like my pore size and like evenness, it is very refined. Like my skin everywhere is smoother. It has a natural glow to it even when I'm not wearing any products. It's so much more even toned. I feel like a lot of my acne scars are faded. And yes, that's not just tretinoin, that's other ingredients also, but I feel like the Tret does a lot of the heavy lifting there. My skin has never been this even toned before. Like, I've had people ask me if I'm wearing foundation when I'm not wearing any product on my skin. Just the overall tone of my skin is so much better than it ever has been. Also, I was at an event and they had this machine that like reads your skin and then it's supposed to tell you all these different things about your skin, and one criteria that it is supposed to decide about your skin was your skin age, and it said my skin was 27-year-old skin and I am 29, which I thought was impressive, especially knowing that I am a fair person that did not start using sunscreen early enough at all. I probably only started daily sunscreen usage around age 25 or 26. I also wanted to note that I find that my acne doesn't last as long as it used to before. Even if I do get a breakout, like I had one on my cheek recently, I think you can kind of still see a mark from it. It was there and gone so much faster with tretinoin than how long I remember having acne before using this prescription. And overall, even though tretinoin has not been like the end-all be-all for me, I've still struggled with acne. I've still had to look to other ingredients to solve it. I have no regrets. I don't have any plans to stop using this anytime soon. It is a staple in my skincare routine. I've convinced so many of my friends in my personal life to try tretinoin. They've also had great experiences with this. I don't necessarily think it is for everyone, but I would definitely recommend talking to your doctor about this if you have been struggling with acne. Also, I know a lot of people start this for the anti-aging benefits of it, which we also talked about a bit today. It's great for that. But I still feel like even though I did have some acne come back, this has still made such a big difference in my acne. I don't really experience it on most regions of my face, except for occasionally on my forehead, and it is still mostly maintained with this. So I really love tretinoin. It is such an integral part of my skincare routine, and I have seen my skin transform from this ingredient. So I'm also going to leave the 6-month update down below because in that one I talk a little bit more about other products that I use, a bit more about what my routine looked like, a bit more about the introduction of tretinoin into my routine. And today's video was more so to kind of give you guys that update after a year, but I really hope that this was helpful. If you are on an acne journey, I'm sending you so much love and I promise it gets better. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys are loving Vlogmas and I will see you tomorrow for a new video. Bye.